This week is Census Week for Ontario school boards. Apart from the usual race, spoken language, and income bracket questions, the census now includes the gender identity and sexual preference of elementary school children in what is being called an identity-based census. Tamara Ugolini here with Rebel News, bringing your attention that evidently October 3rd to 7th is Census Week for Ontario school boards. The Ministry of Education has mandated school boards in Ontario collect and analyze voluntary demographic and perceptual data about students. Following links from Rainbow Schools, that's the largest public school board in Northern Ontario, the board has invited parents/guardians of students in kindergarten to grade 8 and students in grades 9 to 12 to complete an identity-based census. The aim of this data collection is to enable school and system leaders to address barriers to student success in keeping with Ontario's Education Equity Action Plan. If this topic wasn't already confusing enough, parents can evidently scroll over words they may not understand to access a definition. Sadly, because I'm not actually completing this survey online, I don't have the option to interactively scroll the words to access these apparent definitions. Perhaps that's only for the high schoolers. It would have been nice, though, to clear some of the confusion. But apparently, questions regarding gender identity and sexual orientation are grade level appropriate, consistent with the Ontario Curriculum, Health and Physical Education of 2019. Kindergarten to grade 3 students will not be asked about sexual orientation or gender identity. Phew. The gender identity and sexual orientation data is only collected for children in grades 4 to 8, so 9 to 13-year-olds approximately. The website notes that secondary school students, those in grades 9 to 12, will fill out the census online in their classrooms. Under the FAQs, it asks if parents or guardians will have access to the responses submitted by secondary school students, to which the answer is no. This information will be confidential. Parents/guardians will have access to the overall reports that will be generated with aggregate data from all students. These reports will be posted to the board website when available. We're also going to go ahead and file an access to information request for these same reports. I want to know who the contractors were, how much did this program cost taxpayers, and perhaps get some of those definitions I spoke of before. And also we want to see what the results show. We appreciate your continued support for this kind of journalism at rebelinvestigates.com. It's a special website that houses all of our exclusive reports. All right, so back to this actual questionnaire. Well, let's have a look. The first page confirms that the census, which is aligned with Ontario's anti-racism data standards, was the subject of extensive consultations during the 2021-2022 school year. The first few pages of the actual survey are pretty mundane. Questions about first languages spoken, Indigenous identity, ethnicity and cultural origin, racial identity, religious or spiritual affiliation, etc. But then, on page 6, it gets interesting. It asks students, again, those are grades 4 to 8, for gender identity disclosure. It reads, "In Rainbow Schools, we value the gender diversity of our students. Gender identity refers to a person's sense or feeling of being a male or female, both, neither, or anywhere on the gender spectrum, which may not be the same as the person's sex assigned at birth. It is different from and does not determine a person's sexual orientation. What is your child's gender identity? Please select all that apply." So apparently you could be one, none, or all of the above. The options are female, gender fluid, gender nonconforming, male non-binary, questioning, transgender female, transgender male, two-spirit, not sure, I do not understand this question, I prefer not to answer, and then it leaves a space for gender identity or identities not listed above and asks students or their parents to please specify. Next up is sexual orientation, because apparently 9 to 13-year-old children who aren't sexually active should specify their sexual preferences. In Rainbow Schools, we value the sexual diversity of our students. These are children as young as 9. They continue. Sexual orientation refers to a person's sense of sexual attraction to people of the same or different sex. What is your child's sexual orientation? Again, responses, please select all that apply. Straight/heterosexual, lesbian, gay, bisexual, two-spirit, queer questioning, asexual, pansexual, not sure, I do not understand this question, I prefer not to answer, or a sexual orientation not listed above, and if so, please specify. Then it gets back to the usual questions about if the child identifies as a person with a disability and what it is with various options listed. Then it goes on, were they born in Canada or on Turtle Island? But it also asks fairly in-depth personal questions beginning on page 9 about the parents. First of all, what is your relationship to the child? What is the parent's level of education, their employment status, and occupation? All of this for data that will be used to capture information for groups of students in aggregate form. Do you think students in grades 4 to 8 should know what their gender identity or sexual orientation is, let alone be asked to divulge it in a school survey? Is a 9-year-old child that has a grasp on their sexual diversity and orientation one that maybe should be monitored for grooming and/or instances of abuse? I suppose when school boards cower to the terms of equity and inclusion to the point where they vigorously defend a high school shop teacher wearing fetish gear in front of impressionable young boys under the guise of transgender rights, like that one at the Oakville Trafalgar High School, well then this, ladies and gentlemen, is the ideological theories of far-left radicals being posed on young, vulnerable children. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini. Thank you for your continued support at rebelinvestigates.com. Through that special portal, you can help to offset the costs of this kind of investigative journalism, help to fund our access to information requests, and show us, really, that you support the work that we do to bring you the other, often unreported side of the story. That website, again, is rebelinvestigates.com. Thank you for your support.